Mabuhay, good day to you, and welcome to Super Pinoy on Apna TV Channel 36. And thank you so much for watching. This is your Kuya Romy, and this is our segment on Tuesdays with Kuya Romy. As usual, we have a guest with us who is going to share with us a community project. It's not actually a community project per se, it's a big community project. So, without ado, let me introduce to you Leigh Auton. Leigh?
Kia ora, Romy, and thank you for the opportunity of talking to you, and it's great to reconnect with you as we worked over the years together in various forms. Look, for me, Romy, this is a really exciting project for Auckland. It is about the future, shape and form of Auckland, and what we want is to, through this conversation and others, is to make the community aware of what we're doing with light rail, and to get their feedback and participation in this really important piece of infrastructure that will shape, as I mentioned, the future of Auckland.
Yeah. So the project that we're talking about is the light rail project in Auckland, which was announced many times, many years before.
So, Romy, as you're aware, and probably a lot of your viewers are, there's been previous attempts at light rail.
Yeah.
This is the first one driven by Minister Wood to actually engage and involve the community of Auckland in the planning and the thinking of what it can look like going forward. It's actually, this is specifically about from the centre of city to Māngere, but it's also part of a much bigger network that we're looking at, not specifically to engage on that future network, but to be aware of that it is part of a future network that would go to West Auckland and to North Shore.
Yeah, but before we go into details, Leigh, I'd like for you to share your prior experience, before you became chairperson of the establishment unit.
Yeah.
Is that how you call it?
That's right, Romy. Well, it's probably a long history because I've been around a little while now. But I'm proudly a town planner. I've worked in various parts of Auckland, including West Auckland, but for most of my career I was the city planner for Manukau City Council, and then I became the chief executive there. So that's sort of something like 30 years.
Before the super city.
Before the super city. So since the super city, I've been doing lots of contract and professional work on boards and working in my community, which is South Auckland, which I love working in the community.
Yeah. So you're bringing with you a very rich experience into the planning of the light rail in Auckland.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting for a planner to be involved in this because, as I said before, it is about the future shape of Auckland. And I'm asking people to think, what does Auckland look like in 50 years' time? Because, I've built infrastructure. I've built, roads like Te Irarangi Drive, Highbrook. It's in my career, and I know the influence that infrastructure brings. And you've got to think about what that looks like in an urban form, what our city looks like going forward. So that's what I'm asking people to think about, and then participate in that opportunity. Because we do have big opportunities, we also have challenges. Like, for example, how do we reshape the way we commute, the way we interact in communities? Do we have to drive a car? Can we actually get in a really good, efficient light rail system, as we have done with heavy rail and busway on the North Shore?
And this project has been talked about in many different variants, through many different governments. There was something that I heard from you before, that your first job was or had to do with a light rail project 40 years ago.
Yeah, that's right. Romy is referring to the fact my first job offer when I left university in 1975 was to work with New Zealand Railways on a rapid rail in Auckland. I never got to work on that because it was never for political reasons it got stopped. But here we are, and look, I'm really proud of the work that our city has done in the last few years. So prior to amalgamation, in my old role, we worked really hard in the region, with Waitakere City, North Shore, Papakura, Auckland City Council, to look at how we could actually bring better public transport into Auckland. So heavy rail was where we agreed we needed to prioritise, and look, I'm really delighted with the amount of use that that's now getting, from whether it's from Henderson or whether it's from Papakura. You know, those trains are now pretty full, and I'm really proud of that. When we started, there was 2.5 million passengers a year. That was about 2005. It's, you know, before pre-COVID, it was 22 million. So 2.5 million to 22. And,
so the numbers have just escalated.
Just because people, you know, there's a sort of the old maxim of build and it will come. In a sense, it does. If the experience is good, it meets your needs of commuting between communities, people will use it. The North Shore Busway, you know, has been a huge success too. You know, the figure is something like 50% of workers that work in the CBD from the North Shore go by bus.
Yeah.
That's huge.
That's true.
So North Shore City, you know, way back, they drove that project. They built the infrastructure, and people use it. And so it was always the intention that we would, once we did heavy rail and rapid bus on the shore, that we would return to light rail to fill in all the jigsaw in the sub-regions and linking communities within it. So again, I'm excited by that opportunity.
Yeah, okay. We are going to take a short break right now, and when we come back, I'll ask Leigh to share with us what this mission is about, what's driving it, and some other details that he is in a position to say. So thank you so much for watching. We'll be back. We're back with Leigh Auton, the chairman of the Light Rail Establishment Unit in Auckland. And before we went into a break, Leigh was sharing with us a brief history of transport in Auckland.
Yeah.
So now, Leigh, can you continue with your story and maybe segue it into what you're actually doing in the establishment unit?
So I was approached by the Minister of Transport to chair what is described as the establishment unit for light rail in Auckland. The Minister approached me to be the independent chair of that.
Independent chair.
Independent chair.
Yeah.
So the board itself is made up of the likes of the CEO from Auckland Transport, from Wakatahi Ministry of Transport, as well as Councillor Darby from Auckland Council, Maggie Watson from the community boards, Mana Whenua. So it's actually, it represents both Auckland and central government, and I chair that.
So this is the board, but you have been brought in as an independent chair.
Yeah.
Can you share with us the significance of that?
Yeah, it's partly my background, as I described to you before. I know my city. You know, I love my city of Tamaki Makaurau. I guess I'm reasonably well networked, Romy, around the different communities. I spend a lot of my time in community work, and that's what I enjoy. So working with communities is really important. That voice of you know, all the different diverse parts of our city need to be heard. And so part of my role, part of our board is to, and the mandate from the Minister, is that we get out there and we talk to the community, we work with the community and get their voices into then the business case that needs to be presented to the government in a reasonably short time for Cabinet to consider in November.
Right. So the time frame is you have to get the voices or maybe the opinions of the people, put together a case to be discussed by Parliament in November.
By Cabinet. So,
by Cabinet.
So alongside that, we have a unit which has got about 70 odd engineers, planners, iwi personnel, etc., working on the business case. So that business case comprises the options around the mode, you know, the type of type of train set, you know, and there's light rail and there's metro rail, etc. We're working our way through that, where it would go. So, for example, we're out there asking the community about whether it should travel down Dominion Road or whether it should go down Sandringham Road, or are there other options? You know, when it gets to Mount Roskill, we sort of know it'll travel down the motorway there. There's been a designation or for rail for a long time to Onehunga across the Mangere Inlet. So there's, you know, another bridge to the Mangere Town Centre, or then to the airport. You know, there's a whole lot of questions that we've got a highly talented team working alongside, working as part of this process to work our way through it. It's about, and I mentioned before, Romy, about urban form. A key part of this is the type of city that we want to develop from this, because what we know is we need to intensify our city, and there's going to be some big challenges around that. You know, for example, you know, there's a lot of heritage buildings around Mangawhau. You know, there's a whole debate about how can you intensify that around Dominion Road. You know, would you want to as a community? But it may be as part of the business case, you know, to the economics of this, that there maybe has to be some changes. So we want to hear the voice of the community about that. You know, volcanic protection lines, you know, of which we have to protect the views of Mangawhau and our other monga in the city. You know, if we intensify, if we go up, we build up, will it interfere with that value that the community puts on it? You know, which might mean, for example, that you might go to another route like, you know, Sandringham Road, which may not have the same implications. We want to hear the community talk about that, debate it, you know, disagree, agree with it. We will build that into the business case that we take to the Minister of Transport and Minister of Finance is the other person that I report to in that process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what we have actually is for you, an open book in terms of engaging with the community. You're just saying, this is what the government is thinking. Tell us what you think about it.
What we've been careful, Romy, to do is not to come out with the solutions. You know, we know it's complicated around the CBD. We know, for example, that an awful lot of buses go into the CBD down from, you know, Sandringham Road, Dominion Road, from Mount Roskill through into the CBD, and you get buses from the North Shore, etc., etc. We know there's a problem there. We have to work our way through what are the impact of having a light rail into the CBD. Where would it go to? You know, we know that the universities are huge. A lot of students travel by public transport. So where does a light rail, whether it's a tram type, a light rail on surface, or a metro, which might be below surface, where does it intersect in the city? Now, we've been careful not to come out with those solutions, other than to hear the voice of, for example, university students. You know, the people at AUT and Auckland University. You know, what does it mean for them? Rather than say we're going to design it with a station here, etc. That'll come. It'll be part of the more detailed business case going forward, albeit our establishment unit will provide those recommendations through the government.
Yeah, and you're not also going to talk about how the light rail is going to interlink with, for example, North Shore buses, or will that be part of the conversation?
So as I mentioned before, Romy, there is, and it's part of an agreement between the Auckland Council and the central government, they call it ATAC, which does include future links to the shore, to the North Shore. So obviously that involves the link over the harbour. We're not going to deal with that issue because it's controversial for now. But what we have to do is design the links, and we have to take into account the type of train set that would do a long distance travel. You know, ultimately up to Orewa, or ultimately out to Kuya, you know, in West Auckland. So to getting that complexity right, you know, we have to do a lot of detailed planning around that. But first and foremost, we want to have the conversation with the community and their views on it. We want to hear the views of the central city. You know, we know there's a lot of disruption, for example. So, you know, with the CRL, well, the minister has asked us to be, you know, to actually take into account what disruption might look like.
Yeah, especially the CRL, the underground rail system.
Correct.
That's going to open soon in Auckland.
Because what we know is that this light rail will be probably a mixture on ground, underground, overground. You know, so all of those have implications on your communities going forward.
Yeah, we're going to take a break now. We only have this segment for this week, but in the next segment, which will be aired next week, we are going to talk about more detailed plans, if there are detailed plans, and more especially, we are going to talk about how you, our viewers, will be able to share your views. I understand that there will be consultations that will be happening.
Yeah,
right?
Romy, there is, already underway now, is that consultation, and we have a range of opportunities for people to participate. So yeah, we'll be delighted to talk about that.
So we'll see you next week here on Tuesdays with Kuya Romy, Super Pinoy on Apna TV channel 36. And thank you so much, Leigh. We're going to do the next one for next week shortly.
Thank you, Romy.
Thank you.
Super Pinoy, ikwento mo.
Super Pinoy, ikwento mo.
Magandang gabi po, minamahal kong mga kabarangay. Ako po muli ang inyong Kuya Nonoy, inyong Direk Rene, dito po sa PSTV5 Online. Ngayon po, araw ng Sabado, July 24, 2021, ay meron po akong magandang balita na nais pong i-share po sa inyo. Kaya minarapat ko po kahit na medyo gabi na po, ay pumunta po sa Himpapawid at nang mabigyan ko po kayo nitong napakagandang balita. At ito po, isi-share ko po yung aking screen at nang yan, makikita nyo po yung yung aking gustong iparating po sa inyo, ha. Ito po, yan. Yan, ganyan po, yan. Yan, effective po ngayon ay minimum sick leave entitlement to increase to 10 days. Yan po ay effective today. Parliament has passed the Holiday Increasing Sick Leave Amendment Bill to increase the minimum employee sick leave entitlement from 5 days to 10 days per year. Dati po kasi 5 araw lang po ang sick leave natin. So, effective po ngayon ay 10 days na po, no? At most employees who have worked for an employer for 6 months or over are entitled to sick leave if they or a dependent are sick or injured. Currently, employees are entitled for 5 days of sick leave per year. However, from 24 July 2021, this will increase to 10 days per year. Employees will get the extra 5 days when they reach their next entitlement date, either after reaching 6 months employment or on their sick leave entitlement anniversary, 12 months after they were last entitled to sick leave. Employees already get 10 or more sick days a year will not be affected by this change, no? So kagaya ko po, no, ang aking anniversary, work anniversary ko dito sa aking pinapasukan ngayon ay January 15, no? Sa aking pagkaintindi na hindi naman automatic na pa rin ako, yung entitled pa rin ako dun sa 5-day sick leave o kung ano man yung natira. Pero pagdating po ng January 15, na aking anniversary day, ay magiging 10 na po, no? Yun namang mga 6 months, no? Ang sinasabi dito, either after reaching 6 months employment, no? Halimbawa, ano pa lang kayo, no? Bukas ay 6th month nyo na. Yun, 10 na agad yung yung inyong entitlement. Ano bang maganda dito, no? Ang kagandahan po dito ay we'll be using it for our ano to, yung pagbisita po sa doktor, may sakit po tayo, o di kaya yung tinatawag na dependent, no? Ano to, yung asawa, mga anak, ay pag may sakit po sila or di kaya kailangan pumunta sa doktor, pwede pong sick leave po yan, no? At bayad po tayo dyan, no? So, ayan, magandang balita, no? July 24, ngayon po, sa araw nito, effective today, ay 10 araw na pong ating sick leave. At ito po, meron pa palang meron pa itong yung gusto kong i-share yung bandang dulo na ang sabi niya doon ay ito, no? Ito yun, no? Ang sabi ay the maximum amount of unused sick leave that an employee can be entitled to will still remain at 20 days, no? 20 days pa rin po yung sick leave. At ito, yung mga 10 paid days of sick leave per year is available to employees so they can take care of themselves or their dependents, no? Yun nga, yung sinasabi ko po yung mga yung cargo natin sa responsibilidad po natin, no? Yung asawa natin, ang ating mga anak, no? At yan, 10 araw na po ang sick leave entitlement natin dito po sa Aotearoa, New Zealand. Kuntil-butil na mga impormasyon mula po sa inyong kaibigan sa Impapawid, ang inyong Kuya Nonoy, ang inyong Direk Rene, dito po sa PSTV5 Online. Mangyari po lamang ay to like and subscribe po ang ating channel, ang PSTV5 Online. At nang mas marami po tayong magagawang videos, vlogs, and information na isi-share and public service po, no? Like and subscribe our channel dito po sa PSTV5 Online. Ako po muli ang inyong kaibigan sa Impapawid, ang inyong Kuya Nono, inyong Direk Rene. Maraming salamat po at pinayagan niyo ako muli pumasok sa inyong mga tahanan, sa inyong mga puso sa araw nito. Enjoy the rest of the Saturday and enjoy the rest of the weekend. Maraming salamat. Thank you po. Take care and God bless. Ating alamin ang kwento mula sa VOA News.
Scientists and environmental activists have for years called for greater protections for Australia's Great Barrier Reef, but on Friday, the United Nations World Heritage Committee declined to declare the reef in danger. Greenpeace Australia Pacific's Chief Executive Officer, David Ritter, tells the Reuters news agency the move is a mistake.
UNESCO's decision was a terrible missed opportunity to shine a light on the grave danger that our Great Barrier Reef is in, and to begin the fight back for the reef, which can only start with the Australian government taking decisive action to reduce our contribution to climate change.
UNESCO recently recommended the in danger classification, but Australian officials launched an intensive lobbying campaign against it. A UN panel agreed late last week to defer the vote until next year. Ritter says special interests won the day.
It is difficult to imagine how much more in danger the reef could be. So very clearly, it is vested interest agendas that have triumphed here, not science, not common sense, and not the best interests of the Great Barrier Reef.
Australia relies on coal-fired power, and per capita is among the world's top carbon emitters. Its conservative government says defending coal is necessary to defend coal jobs. Terry Hughes is the director of the Australian Research Council Centre of Excellence for Coral Reef Studies. Hughes tells Reuters he disagrees with the government's thinking.
The Australian government is maintaining that keeping the Barrier Reef off the UNESCO in danger list will protect reef tourism. I don't think that's true. The real threat to reef tourism is Australia's love affair with fossil fuels.
The Australian Environment Minister Susan Leigh said in a statement the Great Barrier Reef is, quote, the best managed reef in the world, and pointed to the government's $3 billion investment in its protection. But experts worry that won't be enough to safeguard the biodiversity they say is severely imperiled. Scientists say if coral reefs collapse, it could trigger a catastrophic chain of events, leaving a quarter of the world's marine life without their habitats. Arash Erbasadi, VOA News. Amazon founder Jeff Bezos this week joined another billionaire, Richard Branson, as the wealthiest people ever in space and notched another milestone in private space ventures. Bezos rode aboard his New Shepard rocket, named after first U.S. astronaut Alan Shepard, on the 52nd anniversary of the Apollo 11 moon landing. On board the Blue Origin capsule were Bezos' brother Mark, 82-year-old aviation pioneer Wally Funk, and 18-year-old Oliver Diamond from the Netherlands. Funk and Diamond are respectively the oldest and youngest people ever launched from the planet. The crew floated through several minutes of weightlessness before landing in West Texas to a victorious champagne shower. Bezos said the flight is just the beginning for entrepreneurial activities in space.
We're going to build a road to space so that our kids and their kids can build the future. And we need to do that. We need to do that to solve the problems here on Earth.
Blue Origin has not revealed the passenger cost for future flights, but Bezos says the company so far sold nearly $100 million in tickets. A public auction for a seat on the first flight pulled in $28 million for charity, but that passenger had a scheduling conflict and needed to rebook. Competitor Virgin Galactic is charging $200,000 to $500,000 for seats on its future flights, the first of which didn't go quite as high as Blue Origin. Whether or not either mission actually achieved spaceflight is a matter of interpretation, according to the senior curator at Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum, Mike Neufeld, who spoke with the Associated Press.
There's always been an argument about where does the atmosphere stop and where does space begin, because there is no neat line. There is no barrier that you break through. The atmosphere simply fades out, and, it has different layers. So at some point it becomes thinner and thinner and thinner, and you come very close to a vacuum.
Neufeld says debate over where space begins has raged since the start of America's space program. In other worldly news, NASA says it's almost time for the Mars rover Perseverance to get to work on a critical mission. Perseverance will travel to the Jezero crater in early August to begin taking soil samples from what scientists believe is a dry lake bed that could hold evidence of ancient life. Scientists say any signs of life found will likely be microbial. Finally this week, NASA recently released images of the Bootleg Fire in Oregon. The nation's largest wildfire is now more than 1,600 square kilometers in size. Its smoke this week traveled more than 4,000 kilometers to create hazy conditions on the East Coast. Extreme drought and high temperatures, both courtesy of climate change, are expected to make a busy fire season worse. Arash Arabasadi, VOA News.